Good afternoon, colleagues. We are back from recess. We are continuing our discussion on Bill 20-35. Anyone who would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Shelton, you are recognized.
Seduce Masi, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 20. As someone who is a neighbor of one of Guam's public parks, my home is right next to a public park where I see many things happen, and I have many people park on my property, vandalize my home, and just some things that shouldn't be happening, where families come to enjoy recreational activities. I think that these security cameras and related equipment can be very beneficial, and I know that there are many studies and many reasons that have been already spoken about, and one of them in particular, the Urban Institute Justice Policy Center's study entitled Evaluating the Use of Public Surveillance Cameras for Crime Control and Prevention. This was studying CCTV cameras in one park in Humboldt, Chicago. From this study, they found that CCTV systems save the city for every dollar spent on the maintenance and putting these cameras up, that for every dollar spent, there was $4.30 of saving in crime prevention realized for this city. And so I rise in support of this bill, and also thank the sponsor for bringing this to the floor. Seduce Masi.
Seduce Masi, Senator Shelton. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Senator Talahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the bill, and I want to commend the author for getting all the details and all the other answering the questions that we had asked at the public hearing. I also want to commend GPD for adoption of its standard operating procedures subsequent to the public hearing in regards to operation of CCTV cameras. So those standard operating procedures pretty much answered a lot of my questions. I only have one additional question, and I hope I didn't miss it in the opening remarks, but if the author would yield to just reading the list of places where these are going to go, because right now we have a very general description. It says 9 additional sites in Tumontamuning, 6 in Dedido, 6 in Hagatnya. That's all I have. I wonder if we have specific sites. Thank you.
Senator Tydegui, do you yield?
Yes, I do, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the locations are in writing as far as like where the areas of the cameras are located. And that is the Tumontamuning Precinct Command Center, 9 additional cameras, meaning mostly monitors. So within the Tumon area in which the Wi-Fi is connected, one of those locations specifically is JFK Hill. It's a blind spot there and heavy traffic. So there's some locations there. The Dedido precinct with 6 initial sites in that area. And when you're talking about camera area, you're talking be able to see the front, the side, the inside in certain rooms, especially holding rooms, for instance. And as you remember, Madam Speaker, about a year ago, there was an incident in the Ganya precinct where not a victim, but an individual was there and shot himself. And they weren't able to monitor what he was doing in that room at the time. So cameras are very instrumental on monitoring certain people, or I wouldn't call them prisoners, but people who are in holding areas. Agate Precinct, at this time, they didn't have any known sites for Agate Precinct. And even though they would like these areas, Madam Speaker, the cost might be a little more anticipated than they thought to have all these cameras, but the bill allows as well for them to use other options for cameras, surveillance, and that means body cameras as well. So if there are other areas they want to use cameras other than just monitoring of public areas, body cameras is an option for them too as well, but I don't think they have enough money for that. So I hope that answered the good senator's question.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. Senator Chalahi?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the author for yielding. I was hoping to get additional detail as to exactly where in Tumon these are going to be. We have a list from where cameras were placed pursuant to an MOU between GVB and GPD. There were cameras placed in various areas in Tumon, so I was especially interested in the additional areas in Tumon, Tabuning, where these would be placed. And I only have one concern, and that is that some of these places, they have been, for example, JFK Hill. In recent testimony in a public hearing, the police said this is a hot spot for crime, and so they do need whatever help they can get right there. But there were others that I had heard where they might be putting these cameras, and this is secondhand information, but places that are like adjacent to hotels, for example, the Loti Hotel, Nico Hotel. And I just want to ensure that we have hotspots, for example, at Kmart, they said. We have hotspots at GPO parking lot. We have hotspots next to the Oka Payless. But I just want to make sure that GPD is also pushing these private entities to up their own security to protect us in their parking lots. These are public places, and that they are not just doing nothing and relying on GPD to take care of even their parking lots. I feel like these private businesses, they should take some responsibility for those parking lots, so we can have GPD out on the streets and in a lot more areas. For every private space or private business that takes care of their own place, we can hopefully have GPD to put these cameras into, for example, the hill up to JFK, where there is no private business necessarily. So that's my only concern, is that I wanted to see the list, because a lot of them seem to have been put adjacent to hotels. But I just want GPD to ensure that these hotels are also doing their part to ensure the safety of their visitors and our visitors and residents in these areas who are using their hotels and patronizing these businesses, so that we can put these cameras into a lot more areas. Situs Masi, Madam Speaker.
Situs Masi, Senator Chalahi. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the main motion? Okay. Senator Tyree, you're welcome to close. Senator Lee, you are recognized.
Situs Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. A couple of my concerns have already been addressed. I know that the author of this legislation in her opening statement had addressed some issues with regards to where this money is coming from. And so I appreciate that she has done her due diligence, that we have spoken with the proper authorities at GGRF, and it was addressed in her opening statement. We also were able to approve the amendment to change the timeline, and I really hope that 6 months will be enough time for the Guam Police Department to really see this through. I rise in support of this bill for a number of different reasons, but most especially, Madam Speaker, for a personal one. I support GPD absolutely, and I support increasing public safety in our community and our efforts to be able to keep the public safe. But in my personal experience, prior to my run for senator, my family experienced something very personal. My mother-in-law was doing some grocery shopping in the middle of the day at one of the local supermarkets, and she was loading groceries into the trunk of her car one afternoon. And several individuals drove up behind her and grabbed her purse while she was loading these groceries into her car. They proceeded to drive away, still clutching onto her purse and dragging my mother-in-law across the parking lot. Madam Speaker, this was a horrific experience, not just for my mother-in-law, but for our entire family. And I'm so grateful that this supermarket had security cameras out front, and they were able to assist GPD in providing that evidence. And within a matter of hours, GPD was able to locate the vehicle and able to locate the perpetrators and put them behind bars. And so I'm so grateful for these kinds of resources and these kinds of tools that we can give our local public safety officers to ensure that our community is kept safe. And so I certainly thank the author of this bill for doing the legwork, and I look forward to supporting it. And I thank her also for addressing some of the many issues that were raised by our colleagues today. And I hope that we can continue to find additional resources to provide to GPD and our public safety agencies to ensure that our community is safe. Sujos Masi.
Sujos Masi, Senator Lee. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Taidagui, you're welcome to close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleagues who participated in this discussion, and most especially the previous speaker sharing a very dramatic experience. And it's something that doesn't leave your mind, you know, but the opportunity of having the business have cameras is exactly what the good speaker from Jonia had mentioned. And that is, Guam Police Department encouraging businesses to put up cameras. In fact, Madam Speaker, when the bill was first introduced, I was paid a visit by Jeff Pleadwell from Jeff's Pirates Cove. And he came and he supported the bill wholeheartedly. In fact, he said that he's willing to allow GPD to put their cameras up, to use their power, to use his internet, whatever they need to do on his building, to be able to catch people speeding by and getting their license plate. And I thought it was a good idea. And that's something that we can look into later on in a public-private partnership. I will definitely work with the good committee chair on public safety and looking into something like that, because it's obvious that the resources are very slim for us. And if we can find some opportunity that way, I will surely work with our committee chair and look for it. And again, thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. And I ask that Bill 20-35 be turned into the voting pile for consideration.
Sujos Masi, Senator Taidagui, there's been a motion to move Bill 20-35 into the third reading. No, any objections? No objections? Motion carries. We are now on Bill 25-35. Senator Taidagui,
Thank you, Madam Speaker, again. Madam Speaker, I would like to move Bill 25-35, COR, as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue, and Taxation and Procurement. And I would like to move to the second reading file, and I would like to, a third reading file, and I would like to speak on the bill.
you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and thank you again for the opportunity to present Bill 25 as amended, which requires that any diesel fuel imported to Guam shall meet the U.S. EPA standard for ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel. Madam Speaker, ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel is defined by law as fuel containing 15 parts per million of sulfur content, ppm, which is currently the standard established in Public Law 30-184 that was passed 8 years ago. Public Law 30-184 reads in short, that all diesel fuel imported to Guam for the purpose of sale and distribution shall meet the U.S. EPA standard of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel. Madam Speaker, the law does not stop anyone from importing ultra-low sulfur diesel for personal use today. Bill 25 simply closes that loophole that exists with respect to the Public Law 30-184 by ensuring that Guam continues to be a part of a cleaner environment and by amending the current statute, which will only allow the importation of ultra-low sulfur diesel standard into Guam. As simple as that. Madam Speaker, the amendment proposed in Bill 25 does not affect the Guam Power Authority and its current use of used oil operations. I thank CCU Chairman Joey Duenas for providing written testimony now in support of this revised Bill 25. Madam Speaker, I would also like to state for the record that a greater concern has emerged from our work on Bill 25, and that is the disposal of 1.5 million gallons of used oil that our island produces every year, and sometimes 2 million gallons. And this was discovered, something that we discovered during Bill 25, and my other colleagues was very concerned about this as well, especially the Committee Chair on Environment. So Bill 70 was introduced, Madam Speaker, and to address this issue that should be coming up in about a year and a half, and now's the time. So we introduced together with Bill 70, which creates a task force to address this greater concern. Madam Speaker, I humbly ask for your support for Bill 25 and that of my colleagues so that we can continue to be advocates of a healthy and safe Guam. Situs Masi.
Situs Masi, Senator Tadigui. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the motion? Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I want to thank the sponsor of this bill to raise the concerns regarding used waste oil. And this is an important first step in making sure our environment is healthy and clean. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the motion? Okay. Senator Tadigui, you're welcome to close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I look forward to my colleagues also participating in this task force that stemmed from Bill 25 regarding used oil. It's a really important issue on this island. And I appreciate the good chairman of Environment who's a great advocate for the environment, as well as I am too, Madam Speaker. So I humbly ask that Bill 25 be put into the third reading file for voting consideration. Thank you.
There's been a motion to move Bill 25-35 into the third reading file. Any objections? No objections? Motion carries. Senator Tadigui, you are recognized.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I hope nobody's tired of me. Okay, we are in, Madam Speaker, okay. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 55-35 LS as amended by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, and the Guam Buildup to be placed in the third reading file, and I would like to discuss the bill.
Just a point of order, we are on Bill number 39-35.
My bad.
We'll take a quick 2-minute recess.
I'm good. I'm ready. Never
We
mind.
are back. We are back.
Madam Speaker, I scratch what I just said and take that back. Withdraw. Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Doing good, Matt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize. Madam Speaker, I would like to move Bill 39-35 COR as amended by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, and the Guam Buildup. And I'd like to move it to the third reading file and would like to discuss the bill.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you again, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to present Bill 39 as amended, which authorized additional leave for employees requiring more time for treatment of recovery of a catastrophic or chronic illness. Madam Speaker, for your information, in addition to the term catastrophic illness with respect to the type of illness covered in Bill 39, which is the same term recognized by 4 GCA Chapter 17, the Catastrophic Leave Pool Act, created in 2015 through Public Law 33-76, Bill 39, as amended, recognizes the term chronic illness. Chronic illness, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control, quote, are defined broadly as conditions that last 1 year or more and require ongoing medical attention or limited activities of daily living or both, unquote. Madam Speaker, despite the creation of the Catastrophic Leave Pool Act in 2015, which allows employees to receive donated sick leave in excess of the maximum allowed under the Family and Medical Leave Act of 12 weeks in any 12-month period, DOA informed the legislature during the public hearing on Bill 39 that rules and regulations as required by Public Law 33-76, which was passed in 2015, have not even been developed. Madam Speaker, rather than have employees wait another 3.5 years for rules and regulations to be developed for a Catastrophic Leave Act pool, which, by the way, allows only sick leave to be donated and used, Bill 39 intends to authorize additional leave, both sick and annual leave, for employees requiring more time for medical treatment and recovery within the existing leave-sharing program of the Government of Guam. Madam Speaker, with respect to criticism of Bill 39 suggesting that this is an additional cost for the government, not only is this disheartening, it's fundamentally wrong. Madam Speaker, in order for an employee to participate in the leave-sharing program so that they have the time necessary for treatment and recovery, he or she needs to first exhaust their accrued annual and sick leave. Then, Madam Speaker, the employee with medical issues, including catastrophic or chronic illness going forward, will only be authorized time off if another employee's voluntary transfers their sick leave and annual leave to the affected employee. Moreover, Madam Speaker, the same sick leave and annual leave that we're talking about may be used by employees who earn such leave. And that employee who may use only a portion of their leave throughout their career, if they are not on the defined benefit plan, may either cash out or his or her leave or apply it towards their service. But that's only if they retire. My point is, Madam Speaker, is that sick leave and annual leave is a cost the government of Guam already assumes. However, if an employee donates his or her leave, the recipient cannot exceed the currently hour he or she receives. Example, if John, the donor, makes $20 an hour and donates to Tim, the recipient, who makes only $10 an hour, that means Tim can only receive $10 an hour and not $20 of the recipient's leave. Also, Madam Speaker, because employees who separate from the government and don't return, or who in some cases leave the government or pass away, God forbid, may still have some time left behind. So, Madam Speaker, you ever wonder what happens to that sick leave? It's a liability of the government of Guam. According to DOA director, during the public hearing, this is when the government gets away from having to pay out unused leave, which means the government saves money that would have gone to paying out that leave. Madam Speaker, operating within the current framework of the leave sharing program, such as requiring medical certification and ensuring that employees go through the first 90 days of leave before the next 90 days and then the final 30 days of leave, is the logical approach to helping those requiring additional time to take care of themselves during what may be the most difficult time in their life. I want to thank Mr. Goody Rosario of the Government of Guam at DOA for providing testimony during the public hearing and who had to take leave to be able to testify. Madam Speaker, because individuals diagnosed with certain diseases such as cancer require a longer period to heal, which is what we all want and pray for, their recovery. We must do what we can to support these individuals as they receive treatment and care necessary for a full recovery. Si Dios Masi, and thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Tulahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to check if the author or the committee chair would yield. At the public hearing, there was testimony raised that the word catastrophic was not defined currently in our statutes, I guess. So they were not sure which illnesses would be covered under this. There is a list that says including but not limited to heart attack, stroke, or near cancer, but not limited to. So I don't know. So we're not addressing the definition of catastrophic, despite, I guess, the recommendations of the public hearing. So I just want to ask if they found out otherwise, that it's defined in the law already. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Taitigui, do you yield?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I mentioned at the beginning of my testimony, that in addition to the term of catastrophic illness with respect to the type of illness covered in Bill 39, which is the same term recognized, same term as in 4 GCA Chapter 17, as in the catastrophic leave pool, which is currently law right now, that was created in 2015. But Bill 39 also is amended to also recognize the term chronic illness, because chronic illness is sometimes the term used by most doctors. I hope that answered our good senator's question.
Senator Tulahi? Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Marsh, you're recognized.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker. Such issues as this are difficult to discuss. They're very sensitive. Probably all of us here have dealt with family members or very close friends that have dealt with an issue like this. So, for discussion's sake or thoughtfulness, I bring forth some points, and then I do have possibly an amendment that's being worked on to help tighten up what might be a loose end, but in the public testimony that was provided, it was brought to our attention that with what is currently allowable with 210 days, if we calculate that leave out, it's 7 months or more, which is a long period of time. And certainly going through different issues, it can have a lengthy recovery period, but I think that it is something that we need to look closely at if somebody is going to be gone for 7 months or more. There are some different issues I think that are just important for us to be thinking about, especially if there is no cap. People may be, even though it's voluntarily given for the leave, they may feel pressure. I think I certainly would if somebody within my department or agency or somewhere that I worked was going under this situation. There may be a feeling of pressure to provide leave that might be being held back otherwise for their own potential possible health issues. And I see that this might create a situation, unfortunately, we never know at any time what might happen to us. A diagnosis of cancer comes out of nowhere sometimes, and so forth. And if we, out of compassion or pressure, give away a large portion of our leave, we may find ourselves shortchanged or without much leave when something comes up for ourselves. And so I do worry a little bit about this becoming perhaps cyclical. We do know that we're dealing with rising amount of chronic disease, so that pressure may become more often because chronic disease is on the rise. Each of us has a higher potential of dealing with an issue on our own, and if we've given away our leave out of compassion, we may find ourselves on the short end of the situation. But with all of those different considerations, I at the very least want to offer an amendment. My staff is working on it, but an amendment to have a statement from the doctor on the likely ability of that person to be returning back to work, so that we have an understanding if leave after leave after leave is being given, that there is that possibility that that person after 7 months or 8 months or 9 months, that they will indeed be coming back. One of the concerns that was brought up in the public testimony was after 210 days, after 7 months, that maybe a better way to look at this is looking at it as a long-term disability. But like I said, at the very least, I want to proffer that amendment, and I do have that being worked on. If there are others that are speaking, I can be getting that amendment copied and shared.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the motion? Okay. We'll just take a quick 2-minute recess then, and we'll wait for Senator Marsh to pass out that amendment.
35th Guam Legislature is back from recess. As I understand it, Senator Marsh Tatsino, you have the floor.
Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker. So, with my amendment, it's partly to assist with just having the tools so that an agency or an entity can be planning and work can continue to flow, customers can continue to be having their needs met, and the amendment would appear on line 13, page 4, to add a new sub-item 6 to subsection B of section 4109.2. So for section 6, the certification required pursuant to sub-item 5 of this subsection shall include a statement from the certifying physician on the employee's estimated treatment time and recovery time. And so, as I best understand how this leave sharing program would be working, and I definitely have had friends with these long-term chronic illnesses, dealing with kinds of issues that, from chronic pain syndrome to fighting cancer and so forth. But on the other hand, to allow that agency or entity to continue to have work needs being met, being able to get an estimated treatment time and recovery time would provide them tools so that they would know how, whether they need to try to get a temporary hire or bring in a consultant, something to allow that work to be able to continue. With the leave sharing, it might be coming in 2 days donation at a time, 5 days donation at a time. But if the treatment plan is 3 months, let's say, then that would give the agency or entity that ability to plan for an additional 3 months of time. Any doctor who is a certifying physician should be able to know what is allowable information to share and what is not allowable, and provide a statement that follows those sort of guidelines so that one's personal rights are not being violated, but as is able by the physician, they're at least allowing the employer, the agency or entity, the ability to understand and plan. Sejus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. Anyone else wishing to speak on the main amendment, the amendment by Senator Taitsino? Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have a point of inquiry for the author. My point of inquiry is, perhaps I didn't understand it, it wasn't very clear to me. There was an example proffered by the sponsor, and the example was, if I'm giving leave to someone and I make $20 an hour, and the individual that I'm giving leave to makes $10 an hour, how will this bill impact that leave exchange? If I give it to the individual, will the individual receive $20 an hour?
Senator Kelly, would you like to yield based on the author?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Senator, for that question. It's very simple. If John makes $10 an hour, right, and Tim, it makes 20. Okay, John gets sick and needs some sick leave, and Tim volunteers his time and said, you know what, I will give you some of my sick leave. However, Tim makes $20 an hour, but John is only going to receive $10 an hour, not $20 that Tim is giving his sick leave. So the government doesn't have to pay $10 of that leave that they were liable for in the first place. Now let's switch that around. Let's say John, the person who's sick, makes $20 an hour, and Tim makes $10 an hour. So Tim wants to donate to John, but John makes $20 and Tim makes $10. John, the person who's sick, will only get $10 an hour, not $20 as he's used to, but only $10. I hope that answers the good senator's question.
Vice Speaker Nelson, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Tidegui, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I understand the proffer of the amendment, what she's trying to accomplish here, and that is just to give the ability of the department, agency, to prepare, and rightfully so. However, Madam Speaker, already there is a process that's provided in the current law. That first, the individual with a catastrophic illness or chronic illness, on the first 90 days, first they have to get a sick leave approved, and then after 90 days, they need another additional 90 days. They have to go back to the department or the agency and request for an additional 90 days. And this is an assessment going on, 90 days and another 90 days for assessment, and then a 30-day assessment. So this is 3 different times that an individual who's going through this illness, it's very stressful, Madam Speaker. When people are sick, it's very stressful for them to have to come back 90 days and have to come back again 90 days and 30 days. And I'm not doing anything to change that current process, Madam Speaker, at all. That stays into play. So there is a process in place to prepare that agency to find out what is going on with this individual person. So, Madam Speaker, though I understand what the good senator is doing, I object to this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Tidegui. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? If not, there was not, oh, I'm sorry. Senator Marsh Taitano, you can close.
Sujuis Masi, Madam Speaker. So I do understand and recognize that there is that process of going in for the 90 days and the 90 days and the 30 days. But if this is going to be uncapped, if there's going to be no cap, we really don't know the number of weeks and the number of months. And so it's really about providing that information. If we're lifting the cap as this bill proposes to do, it could be 3 months, it could be an additional 6 months, it could be a very long period of time. So I understand the stress that it might cause, but I also understand that if an agency is thinking that it might be dealing with 2 days here, 5 days there, another 14 days somewhere else, but then it ends up being 6 months or more, that they really need those planning tools to be able to allow the agency to run, continue giving the support to the person who is on leave and the customers to be able to be served so that everything is still continuing to flow as best it can. Sujuis Masi.
Si Diyos Masi, Senator Titano. There was an objection. All those in support of Senator Titano's amendment, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion fails. On the main motion, anyone else wishing to speak? If not, Senator Titagui, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues who participated in the discussion, whether while we were on air or off air. Madam Speaker, this bill brings a very sentimental as well as humanitarian type of bill, a bill that we can help individuals in the government of Guam currently who work very hard with less funding to their agencies, where people bring their own pens and papers and sometimes provide their own computers and equipment to their office. They're lacking funding. Government of Guam employees work very hard. Madam Speaker, I know you've seen it yourself working at agencies. You've worked at a department and agencies. We lack funding for the simplest things and the manpower. Countless times I've seen people at DOA staying late at night, not getting paid, no overtime there, working so hard to get things done so that they can provide services to the people of Guam. Working on weekends sometimes. The government of Guam employees on Guam are hard workers. And then in their time of need, when it's their turn, when they need help, especially if they have a catastrophic illness, a chronic illness, like cancer that's plaguing our island. And that's something I know, Madam Speaker, because I've had cancer. And I've watched other people go through this disease. It's something I didn't want to bring up. But after seeing some of my colleagues here, and I'm unsure of their support for this bill, that it's the time for them to be able to give back to our hardworking government of Guam employees. Go by some of these agencies. See the light still on after 5 o'clock. This is the opportunity we can give back when they're in their most traumatic, trying, most difficult time. This is the way we can give back to them for working so hard for us. So, Madam Speaker, I humbly ask you and my colleagues to remember that cap is lifted because after 210 hours of sick leave that's being used, that's it. If 2 years from now they get sick again, they can't use it. And how can we determine that? Nobody knows if they're going to get sick. So, Madam Speaker, again, I humbly ask for my colleagues' support on this. Let's give back to the hardworking government of Guam employees in their most dire time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Tadegui, on the motion to push it on the third reading. Madam Senator Tadegui, motion to put it in the voting file, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that we move this bill to the I'm
39-35
very, very
COR.
emotional right now, Madam Speaker. Bill 39 to the third reading file for voting.
39-35.
Or the voting file, to the voting file for consideration.
39-35 COR, am I right?
39-35 COR to the voting file for consideration. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Speaker.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, I will entertain one more bill. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized on Bill 44-35 COR.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to move Bill 44-35 into the third reading file and discuss.
Put for vote, consigue mo na.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill number 44-35 is an act to amend subsection 3133 Bravo 5 of Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to removing the imposition of fines for members who attend Guam Department of Education Financial Supervisory Commission meetings. In the current law, Madam Speaker, it states in subsection 3133, failure of the EFC to meet in any month shall result in a $250 fine for each member, which shall be deposited into the GDOE Interscholastic Sports Program. Madam Speaker, this bill is just simply to bring more clarification and equity to the current law. Historically, when there is no quorum, each member is charged that $250 fine. In the years, according to the OFB, EFSC website under minutes and agenda, it states months with no minutes and agendas have considered no quorum to be met. And so in our research, what we acquired was that in 2013, there were 2 months with no quorum. In 2014, there were 3 months with no quorum. And in 2017, there were 2 months with no quorum met. In a response letter that the superintendent wrote us, he clarified that there were no fees or fines collected for not having this quorum. Thereby, this money did not go into interscholastic sports, and the members did not have to pay a fee or fine for not meeting the requirements of the law, which they should have been paid, And so this, this is very important. We have this Education Finance Supervisory Committee to really to take a microscopic look on how our educational funds are being used. And for there to be no quorum is just unacceptable. Secondly, if these members are not paying their fines, and these are government employed members, they're not paying their fines, they should have been paying their fines. And so it's a very simple provision that we are making a correction to. Also, I would like to add that the Education Financial Supervisory Committee consists of the Director of Department of Administration or a designated representative, the Director of Bureau of Budget and Management Research or a designated representative, the Director of Office in Finance and Budget or a representative, the Public Auditor or a representative, a parent of a child currently enrolled in a public school appointed by the chairperson of the Committee on Education of Y Legislature and Guahan. We already appointed one. The General Accounting Supervisor of the Department of Administration, who is an alternate, the Superintendent of Education, which is an ex officio member, and the Deputy Superintendent of Finance, which is an ex officio member. And so, Madam Speaker, at this time, I'd like to proffer an amendment, and just to make it clear, on page 1, line 12, it states it says $50, 250 fine for each member. I'd like to include the word each voting member absent from an EFSC meeting.
We're going to save a tree and work on that motion. So after the
Roger
word
that.
each, we're going to put voting. Am I right?
That's correct.
On that motion, are there any objections? No objections? Motion carries. Please proceed.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion? Senator Terlaye, you're recognized. Therese Terlaye, I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the clarification that this bill is going to bring to this fine, but I'm still not clear. It says the fine shall be imposed on the absent member for every meeting missed that resulted in a lack of quorum. But I think that those words "that resulted in" are going to become problematic. And I think, if you don't want to have to defend whether your absence was the one that resulted in the lack of quorum or the other person's absence is one that resulted in a lack of quorum. And I'm also concerned that there's no out for, like I know some of the boards that I have oversight over right now, they didn't have a meeting and I was just kind of upset. Why are you not having meetings? And someone passed away in the family, they had to go off island. I mean, unfortunately, our boards are faced with those kinds of things. So I guess I would just maybe suggest to the author that for every meeting missed where there was a lack of quorum. So it's really not a result of your absence, but there wasn't one because whatever. So,
Senator Therese, in that case, would you like to proffer an amendment based on that statement, or you'll just...
Not really. I guess I take it back. I don't want to proffer the amendment. I don't feel that was prepared enough.
Okay.
So I'm just I guess suggesting my concern that we might have a problem if my absence was the result or your absence was the result,
right.
And I just don't know what happens then when there are extenuating circumstances. And I guess I also would like, if the author would yield, how does this new language now how is this going to embolden the implementation of the fines? Have they committed to now implementing these fines, whereas before they had hesitated to fine anyone?
If that is a form of an inquiry, Madam Senator, I will ask the Vice Speaker, would you like to yield?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker. The law itself should have made it a requirement that when there was no quorum, that each member should have paid the fine. Now the law is saying that if you are not present, those members that did not show up to the meeting, those are the members that will pay the fine. The bill is proposing that. And so what makes it different? Well, we have a great parent representative in this board, and she's doing a great job of ensuring and supporting the due diligence of the committee. And as the oversight chair, I will make sure that if there is no quorum, that we do what we need to do on our part to let the superintendent be aware that these fines must be imposed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator Terlaye, you're still recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's all I have on this bill, and I want to support the bill. I just wanted to make sure that it's really going to work. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Duly noted, Senator Sidus Masi Talu. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator Amanda Shelton, Legislative Secretary, you are recognized. Please proceed.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, and I rise in support of Bill 44. I think the basic principle of discipline or enforcement is to punish the person who's responsible for a transgression. And in the existing public law, all members of the commission are fined when the commission does not meet, or that's the intent, though it has lacked enforcement. However, it is often only one or two people who may be absent that causes this lack of quorum. By fining only in those instances in which an absence causes a lack of quorum, I think that we will continue to emphasize the importance of this commission in maintaining the financial health of DOE without imposing a fine structure. I think it's clear that the intent of the original author for this public law was for this commission to really be taken seriously and for the members to take what they were doing seriously and to actually meet when they were supposed to meet. I think for several years now, since this group has been established, they've met their purpose. And it's time to take away this probationary period, which again has lacked enforcement, and that we take this probationary measure away and let the board simply do what it was meant to do. So again, I rise in support, and I thank the author for this legislation.
Si Diyos Masi, Senator Shelton. Senator Titlequee, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to commend the author of this legislation. I think she's hitting it right on the nail, just like a bill that I proffered earlier today with putting, fire to the feet, doing something they've been put in the position to do. And sometimes a fine like this is needed, to get their attention or to decide whether they're going to sit on this board or not. Or in the other case of the other bill, whether they're going to do their job or not, that they were given a job to. So I fully support this type of fine for people not doing their job. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Si Diyos Masi, Senator Tello Titlequee. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Vice Speaker, you may close on your bill.
Si Diyos Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that as we approach this budget season, we need to take a very proactive approach to understand where our monies are going to, especially with Department of Education. They are 1/3 of the government's budget. They receive the lion's share of the budget, and this also is a result from taxing our people. And so, Madam Speaker, this is just a move forward to ensure that those that are supposed to assist us in providing a checks and balance within the government agencies, that they act and do so. This is not very complicated. It's a situation where if you are BBMR, you send a representative, a designated representative. If you are DOA, you send a designated representative. If you are OFB, you send a designated representative. And so these are agencies within the government that see the accounting of the money and that know where the money should be going. And also it's the job of the EFSC to ensure that that money is spent properly. Not to a matter just to go to the meeting and throw out a bunch of numbers, no. It's a time where they have the opportunity to dissect each and every dollar spent or will be spent, and for the cause that it is spent for, and to ensure that it is spent for the best interest of our children. And so, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their support, and those that are contemplating the support of the bill, I humbly ask them for their support as well. Si Diyos Masi, Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to move the bill into the third reading file.
On that motion, Si Diyos Masi, Vice Speaker, on that motion to place into the voting file bill number 44-35 COR, without any objection, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 3:45 right now. I'm going to go ahead, because we still have a little time, I'm going to entertain Bill 55-35, but I want to allow time for my colleagues to meet in the foyer before the 5 o'clock start, to be able to represent the legislature and the staff in our walkout this afternoon to support enough. So with that being said, Senator Tello Titlequee, I will recognize you on Bill 55-35 LS.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker, so much for allowing me to bring Bill number 55-35 LS as amended by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, and the Guam Buildup. And I would like to move that this be placed on the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss the bill, please.
I apologize, Senator Titlequee, was that 55 as amended?
55, as reported out, is as amended by Committee on Public, is as amended.
Go ahead and finish
you,
reading
Madam.
the as amended by the
Yes.
Committee on, if you can please just complete that,
Okay.
as amended.
As amended by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, and Guam Buildup. And move to the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on the bill, please, Madam Speaker.
Por favor, consiga, Mona.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to present Bill 55 as amended, which seeks to give an additional voice for executive branch employees on the Government of Guam Health Insurance Negotiating Team. Madam Speaker, with respect to the Government of Guam Health Insurance Negotiating Team, the Guam Legislature has a history of tweaking its membership. A few examples, Madam Speaker, include Bill 264 in the 29th Guam Legislature, which changed the appointing authority of the judicial branch from the presiding judge of the Superior Court to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The same bill, which became Public Law 29-80, added a retiree who is a member of the Government of Guam Retirement Fund to be appointed by the Board of Trustees of the fund to serve as a member of the Health Insurance Negotiating Team. Madam Speaker, Bill 482-30, which became Public Law 30-227, added one member of the general public appointed by the Governor of Guam to serve as the Health Insurance Negotiating Team. Bill 435-31, which became Public Law 31-197, clarified that the member of the general public authorized in Public Law 30-227 shall not be an employee of the Government of Guam or an appointee by the Governor to the government agency, board, or commission. Madam Speaker, more recently in 2015, Bill 13-33, which did not become Public Law, sought to add the Chief Administrator of the Division of Public Welfare of the Department of Public Health and Social Service and the Chief Financial Officer of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority as member of the Health Insurance Negotiation Team. Madam Speaker, Bill 55 continues the legislature's efforts to strengthen and improve the Health Insurance Negotiating Team while recognizing both the legislative branch and the judicial branch have the option through 4 GCA Section 4301C to enter into separate contracts for their employees. This is on the legislative side and the judicial side. Madam Speaker, as I shared during the public hearing earlier this month regarding Bill 55, although the legislature has decided to participate in the health insurance contract carried out by the executive branch, there may be opportunities in the future for our branch, as has been in the case recently of the judicial branch, where the legislature may decide to enter into the health insurance contract separate from the executive branch. So, Madam Speaker, Bill 55 simply recognizes such as a scenario and allows additional representation for the executive branch employees, those who are most impacted by the contract role. So, Madam Speaker, Bill 55 simply just allows currently the Guam Legislature as well as the judicial receives a letter from the executive branch asking if they want to participate in the insurance contract. The legislature has always in years past been part of the executive branch in insurance, health insurance. However, the judicial branch has opted out many times to be separate and apart. So what my bill does now, Madam Speaker, is to allow those who have an invested interest on this board to be a part of the negotiating team. If you are not going to participate in this type of insurance contract, the executive branch's contract, then there is really no need for you to be a voting member. Madam Speaker, though my bill gives the governor the option that in the event the judicial branch or the legislative branch decides to opt out, to actually still be a part of the team but not have a voting right on the negotiating team. Madam Speaker, it has come to my attention and through some conversation with DOA that it's become very difficult on this insurance negotiation team where there's just so many members to all come together. So, Madam Speaker, what I would like to do is make an amendment, but However, I want to make an amendment, but I understand what DOA is saying, that there's so many people involved, but I really think that right now the team in itself that's made up, we can still have somebody else on that chair, sitting there. So, Madam Speaker. Okay, so Madam Speaker, basically, so what the bill does is just allows for the executive branch to choose an employee from the government of Guam to sit in place of either the judicial seat. If they should opt out, then the administration can replace it with an employee of the government of Guam. And such the same for the legislature as well, to do the same. So I'm decided just to keep everything the way it is right now, unless my colleagues have something better to strengthen it or make sense. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sijus Masi, Senator Tadigui. I have Senator Amanda Shelton and Senator Therese Terlai. Senator Amanda, Legislative Secretary, you are recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. I know that the author was just speaking on the number of people who would make up this negotiating team, and I understand that the DOA director, Ed Byrne, recommended that instead of giving the executive branch an additional substitute representative, to just eliminate the position in this negotiating team instead. So I'd like to know why it would still be kept if the makeup is already, getting out of hand. Why not just eliminate those positions if she'd yield?
Thank you, Legislative Secretary. Senator Tadigui, would you like to yield to that question, to that inquiry by the Legislative Secretary?
Thank you, and thank you for that question, Madam Speaker. As I'm counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do have 7. There's a requirement for quorum. Like I said in my opening, Madam Speaker, there was some concerns on both ends of that. And like I said, I did have a conversation with Department of Administration, and then somebody else did speak to them. So I think I can address the good senator's question. If you could just give me 1 minute recess, Madam Speaker, sorry. Okay.
I will allow that, Senator Tadigui. Moments recess. our legislature's back from recess. Legislative Secretary, you had the floor. You are good? On the main amendment, on the main motion, I do apologize. Senator Therese, you are recognized on the main motion. On the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. But I would like to offer an amendment. So I've passed out two amendments. They're almost identical, but one's for the legislative and one is for the judicial branches. And so it would just clarify exactly what the Department of Administration was saying during the public hearing, and that is if the judiciary opts out or the legislature opts out of joining in with the Government of Guam health insurance contract, then instead of staying on the committee and appointing another member to the committee from the executive branch, my amendment says very clearly that those representatives will then be replaced by another appointee from the executive branch. And I think that there is interest in the executive branch for additional representation. And so I don't think that, personally, that there would be too much representation. And I think that the number of, it would maintain the same number of voting members as there is right now. Sijusmasi, Madam Speaker. Oh, so I guess we'll take it one by one. Yeah,
one by one.
The judicial branch, so it would add the words,
we can do page 2 first, page 1 first, I apologize, on line 14. Everybody has a copy?
yes, so should the judicial branch decide to enter into a contract separate, so then this kicks in. So then an employee representative from the executive branch shall be appointed by the governor to replace the employee representative from the judicial branch.
On that motion, without any objections, motion carries. On the second amendment, Senator.
Thank you very much. Again, it's the same exact language except to replace the employee representative from the legislative branch.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries.
Sijusmasi, Madam Speaker, and again, I support this bill. Sijusmasi.
Sinamasi. Senator San Augustine, would you like to speak on the motion? On the main motion.
On the main motion?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I'm just kind of trying to understand this, is that we're looking at anticipating, okay? That's what this bill is about. It's about anticipating if the judicial or the legislature is going to opt out of the contracts. You know, when it first starts out, everybody's involved in the negotiation. The executive branch doesn't have all the brightest minds. Neither does the judiciary, neither does the legislature. But when we put all three branches together, they're all looking for the best product. The time that they will opt out is after they find out that there's nothing they can change that would benefit the employees in their branch. By the time that reaches, what are you changing folks on the negotiating team when everything's already packaged? So my question is the system broken that we need to put this in and start changing it now? Because I don't believe it is. So I actually object to the bill.
Thank you very much, Senator San Augustine. Vice Speaker.
Point of information, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
If I could clarify, I asked that question at the public hearing, and so the reply that I got from the Department of Administration is that they must make this decision by March, and that is late March, and that is prior even to the RFP being issued. So the timing works. It's before they are negotiating, and so that is a time when we want to be able to be in or out, and it doesn't affect the ability of the negotiating team thereafter.
Sijusmasi, Senator Therese, for the point of information. Anyone else wishing to speak? Vice Speaker Nelson, could you take the dais, please? Tell her I'm in session 4. I'll call her right back.
Speaker Barnes, you are recognized.
Si Diyos Masi, Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me an opportunity to stand and rise in support of Bill number 55-35 LS. And I'd like to thank the good author from, I think it's Aganya now. It used to be from Chalampago, but Haganya now, for giving me the opportunity to be her co-sponsor. And Madam Speaker, when she asked me to be her co-sponsor, I understood the parameters in making sure that if a government agency within the 3 branches of government, if one of them wanted to opt out, that that then they choose to opt out, and based on the point of information and what had happened at the from the previous speaker, the good senator from Jonia, noting that DOA did say that that option would be if they wanted to stay in, opt in, or opt out, then that would be before the negotiations go on. And I said, yes, I want to support that, because the request for them to even ask to be an ex-official member is saying, if the benefit is not good for me, then, okay with the government, the other government branches to have to go through the negotiation process, but we're going to go the other way. and I said, if we are committed to this process to try and get the most beneficial and economic plan for our employees who subscribe for insurance, then yes, we should only have the stakeholders who are going to play a part of the equation. So I support the bill. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that when it comes to benefits and supporting what our government receive, our government subscribers who go through their insurance policies, I want to say, from experience, having over 34 years of government experience and being a part of the government plan for all those years and continuing to be a part of that plan today, I think that the stakeholders who are going to be a part of the negotiation team should be the one whose lives are going to be affected by. So, Madam Speaker, I support the efforts of the author from Hagåtña, and I think that as we continue to move forward, that we take the time to provide all our government employees and our retirees the best beneficial plan to support the quality of health care for our subscribers within the government. And if an agency, a branch, decides to opt out, then having the representation and the opportunity for our Magahaga to appoint a member to the negotiating team I think continues to give parity. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to briefly speak and rise in support of this measure. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Speaker Barnes.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion? If not, Senator Taitigui, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, and my colleagues as well for the amendment made by the good chair of Justice. To put her input into it means a lot to this bill. And I thank you, Madam Speaker, for also being a co-sponsor for this bill. And Madam Speaker, I humbly ask that Bill 55-35 LS be moved to the voting file for consideration.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. I'm going to just take a moment recess so that I can seek some interpretation of how we want to move forward on tomorrow's session day. So just a moment's recess. y 1085 Legislature in Guam is back from recess. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one resolution, and for consideration of our colleagues who wanted to make sure that the committee reports are in for the appointments, and there was a couple of bills for consideration. I want to share with you that I will just make an announcement before we take recess to ask for a motion for recess tomorrow at 10. But note that I humbly extend an invitation to have all your staff who's here to please meet us in here, and at 5 o'clock we will walk out to the front of the Guam Congress building to show our support in solidarity for enough. And I'm asking if we can all invite our employees to join us. And with that being said, Majority Leader Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Cesar Masi, Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to recess till tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Without any objection, motion carries. We are in recess.